Hello, welcome to News Centre. I'm Parikshit Luthra. Let's start with the top corporate story of the day, and that continues to be the Adani Group. All 10 group companies, including NDTV, ended in the red today as the rout continues. Group stocks lost over 51,000 crore rupees in market capitalization just today, taking the total loss since the Hindenburg report to more than 10 lakh crore rupees. The group has pledged additional shares worth more than 1,000 crore rupees to SBI for the Carmichael project in Australia. Shares that amount to 1% stake in Adani Ports, 0.55% stake in Adani Transmissions and 1% stake in Adani Green have been pledged additionally. SBI said Adani Group's pledge was used to only top up the collateral and no new loans will be sanctioned. Meanwhile, the Finance Ministry, in a response to a question in Parliament, revealed the exposure of public sector general insurance companies to the Adani Group. New India Assurance, United Insurance, National Insurance, Oriental Insurance and General Insurance have exposure to the Adani Group, which amounts to 0.14% of total assets under management. However, the government statement added that financial institutions like Exim Bank, SIDBI, NHB and NABARD could not divulge information under their act. Separately, the Supreme Court heard the Adani matter today. Here's Ashmit Kumar with more on that. Ashmit, what kind of directions or observations has the Supreme Court made?
Well, just for the context to begin with, it's on Friday that there was the first hearing in this case, and that's when the Supreme Court had served up three issues before the Solicitor General. The first was about the sufficiency and the competency of the current framework for investor protection. The Supreme Court had said that middle class has massive exposure to the stock markets, that lakhs of wealth has been eroded, and therefore had sought questions from Solicitor General on sufficiency of the current framework for investor protection. The second was on whether or not additional legislative or regulatory tools can be used for strengthening this framework. That was the second issue. The third was, what about an expert panel? This was a suggestion that fell from the Apex Court that perhaps an expert panel may be needed to advise, to recommend any additions or changes to the framework in place. Now, these questions were answered in brief by the Solicitor General today before the Apex Court. First up, the Solicitor General, appearing on behalf of the government, he said that the current framework is in fact competent to deal with such scenarios, such shocks, that there are enough secure safeguards in place. That was first. The second, Solicitor General said that at this point, while this current system was sufficient, it was open to the idea that was suggested by the Apex Court for suggesting for having an expert panel. That was the second key takeaway. The third is that, importantly, Solicitor General warned and perhaps expressed concern on behalf of the government that, look, if an expert panel is deliberating on the issue, it could send potentially adverse situation signals to global investors, and that may be a cause of concern. And towards that end, what has fallen from the Solicitor General is that the scope and the remit of this expert committee should be limited, and that the government should be the one suggesting names of experts to this panel, and towards that end has said that it will submit both of them in a sealed envelope only for the eyes of the judges. So no call has been taken on that yet. The matter will be taken up for further hearing on Friday. That's when the Supreme Court will resume hearing.
Right, important legal steps there in the Supreme Court as far as the